Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode. This week we're chatting with Katelyn DeRobertis. She is a multimedia comic artist and pandemic mommy extraordinaire. We have a really nice conversation about the ins and outs of defining your own success and practice as an artist. We learn a little bit more about both of our younger years, figuring out just how to find creative fulfillment and how that changes over time, and how stability can be very, very sexy. As always, you can find us at HBU Pod on Instagram and Twitter. And if you're looking for some extra goodies like video versions of the interviews, art downloads, and maybe even Katelyn's Animal Crossing friend code, head over to patreon.com/howaboutyou. Let's go. Yo!
Hello, can you hear me?
I can. How's it going?
Okay, sweet. Good, how are you? Should I turn my camera on? I'm like going on a walk, so like...
You can do whatever you want, dude. That's the fun thing about being in a pandemic now is like everybody's kind of just like, you're still doing stuff? Cool. You know, it's like doesn't really matter the details other than that. It's like if anybody's
right?
doing things, like that's like applaudable. So yeah.
Right. I had like a conference call. And that's the other thing like too, like coming back, you know, from the maternity leave and all this crazy shit. Like now, like the business world has changed so much and like just the world in general, of course. But you know, so like everybody expects you to have your cameras on all the time. And I'm like not camera ready, you know? Like the other day, I was doing this call and like Beck comes in like with the baby, like changing her like her naked ass out and like trying to hand me a cheeseburger because it's lunchtime and it's I'm supposed to be looking like this professional woman.
Amazing.
And it's like this is what I usually do when I'm on a call with somebody, but you just can't see it. So
yeah.
The jig is up.
Oh man. Yeah, what other, I mean, is that like one of the biggest changes right now in the way that you work is just obviously doing everything from home? Or I mean,
well, see, that's the thing though, like for me, like I did like 90% of my job from home before.
Okay. Yeah.
Just other people were like in an office, you know? So like you know.
Yeah.
I don't know. That like the biggest thing that really I felt like changed was, well, you know, because like I do events, right?
Right.
And that's not really happening right now.
Right.
Like people are not getting together. So that's like number one biggest thing. And then the second thing is like all the different technology that's popped up.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm like sorry, it's a big hill. I'm like the millennial kid, you know what I mean? So like I was the one who always knew the new technology and could figure stuff out really quick and like, oh, you know, this is too hard for my Gen X brain to handle. Like give it to Katelyn. You know? But like seriously, like all of the different innovations and stuff that happened even just like in the last 6 months, I was not paying attention and now I'm like a grandma over here. Like I do not understand. You know, like there's like 40 different file sharing services. There's like all these different ways, you know, like Teams is really big now and I'm like, I don't know how to fucking use this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it's just like, you know, like a lot of really cool innovations to make things work still, but like, you know, I feel like you know, just like one of those grandmas in those cricket commercials who are like, how does this work?
We didn't have to worry about this before.
Yeah. Yeah, but that's okay.
Yeah, it sounds way quieter now. So great job.
Oh, and that's when she chimes in.
Beep,
Yeah,
beep.
I'm kind of in like a neighborhood now. So then the only problem, is these Mondo Hills. So it's like you can hear me, but I'm like, oh, awesome, how cool. But I'll cut out on that pretty soon. Here, I'll hit my stride. I promise.
All good.
And then it can really start.
Well, thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm like super pumped. You know,
Cute.
I always love to talk to Vicky. You know, you're always such a fun one to catch up with, and you know, you just like buoy my spirits, girl. You know, like make everything happy and good. So
Very cute. I feel the same about you, of course.
I know, just like I have to be careful now that we're recording what we're saying. You know, I have to like watch all like my hot goss. It's like, oh shit.
we can bleep any hot goss. It's just too hot for the
yeah, or just use some fake names, you know.
Yeah,
like
that's really fun.
You know, we'll just, you know, Cindy will be our code name for you know who and stuff like that.
Very good. Okay, well, let's get into it, right?
Yeah, totally.
We are talking to Katelyn DeRobertis, right?
Yeah, hey, that's me now.
Hey, I had Hugdoll written down first, but that's not you no mo.
Yeah, in the eyes of the government, I'm Kate DeRobertis now. So
nice. Artiste,
yeah, that's old me.
Extraordinaire.
Old me is dead. Yeah.
Filmmaker, fucking cartoonist, mom life now. Just kind of general badassery is your expertise, I'd say.
Yeah, thank you. That's a very nice way to put it. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I'm kind of like your basic bitch, like pumpkin spice latte friend, you know, like
what?
You make me sound really cool, but you know what I mean? I'm kind of like the one, you know, it's just like, I'm kind of a boring old white woman who's like married with a kid now, who kind of just, you know, that's how I see myself.
Describe you. Yeah, that's. I mean,
you know, I'm like,
you like to see yourself.
The woman formerly known as cool. Yeah, I don't know.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I just feel like it's like I'm in my 30s now. I'm just like such an old woman. I'm so responsible, so mature. Amazing. I have grass in my yard. Like, what's going on? No, yeah, but you know, just try to keep it real. Just try to make money and do cool stuff when I can, when the opportunity comes. So,
and it's beautiful when it does. I was just like going through a bunch of your like comics and stuff, and I freaking love your comics. I wish you just
man.
You know, a bag of $1 million or whatever, so you could just make comics all the time. That'd be really fun.
Dude. Yeah, I know. You sent me like a Tumblr link to, you know, and then I started going down this Tumblr rabbit hole, and I was like, man, that was so fun. You know, I used to like, especially when I first moved out here, like I didn't have any friends, I didn't have any money, and I didn't really have a lot of work lined up. So I was just like, well, what do I do with myself? And I drew a lot of comics, you know, like most of them I did not put online because they were like deeply personal, or like, you know, just had things about them where I was like, you know, I don't want people to know this about me, or like know that this is how I see stuff. Sure. But like in a cathartic way, you know, like help me just kind of figure out how to draw them, you know, and just how to do little things. And that was really a super fun hobby that I need to pick up again.
You're so good at it. And it's like legitimately, I mean, it's just the perfect combination of like taking, you know, maybe an inspiration from an ounce of real life and just like you voice it so well, and it's so goddamn funny.
I appreciate that. Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's like you know, it's just like a fun thing to do, you know, just like when you just sit down and you just make something exist that didn't before, you know, in like whatever medium it may be.
Right.
Yeah, and comics are just really fun because it's like, you know, like with filmmaking, you need a whole crew of people to tell your funny stories, or whatever kind of stories. I always like funny stuff. And comics, you kind of control everything. But you can still use that same visual language, you know, so that's cool.
Yeah, I feel like the visual style of your comics is very cinematic in the way that you just, you know, set up all the shots stuff. I mean, I'm sure like I'm not super versed in comic books by any mean, you know, but I'm sure people could say like that's how fucking comic books are, dude. But yeah, to me it's a very cinematic aesthetic. I love it. I just love it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, you know,
Mhm.
I mean, like I always like the alt comic stuff, you know what I mean? Like I like Dan Clowes and like Mike DeForge and like those kind of guys.
Mhm.
So it's like not comics where it's like you'd think of like Marvel movies and stuff. Like I don't know jack about that kind of comic world, which is
Right.
basically like the comic world, right? But
Sure.
you know, I mean, the cool thing again about comics is like there are rules, but everybody breaks them, you know? So it's kind of
Right.
fun to mess with that too.
Yes. Yeah, I've been getting into oh God, what is it? Well, just like kind of the indie, I guess, comic illustration scene on like Instagram in general, you know? And like I love finding a new comic now where they're like releasing different frames like every day or something. It's almost like a Sunday strip daily, but it's all belongs to this one long story. Have you heard of Simon Hanselman before?
Is he the guy who did like that witchy stuff? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Crisis Zone. That's been really fun.
Yeah, he's really fun. And then there's this, God, what's the name of this gal who does that, who I follow, who actually I followed on Tumblr too. So it's like kind of funny that I forget her name. It's like Allie Nash or some stuff. Anyway, there's a lot of cool stuff like that. I feel like the people that I see on Instagram that I like more like people who are more like illustrative.
Yeah.
You know, like Lauren Callahan's really cool. And then there's like Will McPhail who does more like New York kind of comics.
Yeah, definitely.
You know, but there's so many people that do like such awesome work. And
yeah, for sure. It's
that's why it's like, you know, the world doesn't need me to make stuff. There's already so many people making such cool stuff.
Dude, I think
just maybe kind of a bad attitude, but
no, really, I'm like, you know, sometimes it stops me from working and sometimes it inspires me to work, but like the line that like, oh, they've got that taken care of. Like I say that to myself probably too regularly. Like it's like, oh, I'd like to draw, or oh, I'd like to play music in that style. And then I come across an artist and I'm like, oh, yep, they've got that taken care of. I can just like listen to their stuff, you know, because it's like, I feel like producing art and stuff in a way, like it's kind of selfish in the sense of like, oh, I need to like take this thought or idea or whatever and like turn it into something productive or like make something beautiful or funny or whatever out of it. And it's like kind of self-serving for me, at least. It's like, okay, if this affects somebody else and like explains or like does something for them, that's fucking awesome. But like ultimately, like with music, I'm making stuff that I enjoy listening to, or you know, with art, I'm making something I like looking at. And it's like, if I get that desire filled through another artist, I'm like, all right, cool. Like, I'll just watch more bad reality TV or something instead.
I know, right? It's just like it's like the low hanging fruit of life just kind of gets you. But no, but I mean, I totally get what you mean, you know, and it's tough too, because it's like there's like the fine line of making stuff for yourself, which is cathartic and, you know, and selfish in a way, but also just, you know, like I'm kind of a way of like self-care too, because I feel like whenever I would draw, I would be working out problems or things that like were really bugging me.
Yep.
And I could kind of make whatever I wanted to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And like, you know, usually from that kind of places where you'd make cool stuff, but maybe then it would be like, for me anyways, it'd be like too personal, or it'd be like, oh man, if I put this out there, people are going to see something or know something about me that I don't want them to, you know, because I feel like, at least in my art, I'm a very guarded person. So it's tricky. And then I feel like some of that selfishness, like you really, you know, to kind of succeed, at least in the digital landscape of all these artists, you really need to be like, look at me, look at me, look at me, and constantly creating, you know, like you need to be just grinding all the time. Whereas I don't live life on that pace, you know?
Right.
I'm distracted. I have too many things that like I want to do all the time, you know?
Right. Also, I feel like the other aspect of like, yeah, like you have to be grinding and producing and just like making sure you're seen all the time. But then also like as an audience, I feel like we're kind of vampiric in the sense of like, oh, we want like the inside stuff. Like we want the raw, vulnerable bits that, you know, like you're saying, like, honestly, it's maybe a good idea to not just put stuff that you're scared to put out, I guess. But at the same time, it's like, you know, we want all the bits, you know, as far as like an artist and stuff. I'm just thinking of the art that I'm most moved by or most interested in usually is like
some pretty vulnerable stuff, or some like very personal stuff at the very least, I guess. Like, oh, like I'm getting a more intricate portrait of who you are, as
or I can relate to that experience or something,
Right.
where it's like, oh, I feel that way. You feel that way too. I'm not so alone in, on this big giant rock.
Right.
So it's, yeah. I feel like I had this experience when I was like in middle school, because I used to draw, like all day, every day, basically, up until like probably my mid 20s. And like one time in middle school, I left my notebook that was like full of my drawings.
Oh no.
I know, in like the geography classroom, and like, like the school that I went to, it was like K through 12 all in the same building. And like, so 7th through 12th grade would all have all of their social studies classes in the same room with the same teacher, right? And like I left my notebook in there, and like I had all this stuff, and it was, you know what I mean? And I came back, I was looking for that notebook too, but I came back like a day or two later and I found it, and somebody had written in giant letters across one of my drawings in like this really blocky font, "Dumb ass hoe." And I was like, oh man, really?
Oh my God. That's a nightmare.
I know. I was like, I'm not a dumb ass hoe. It was like dumb apostrophe ASS with the S's look like 5s, and then hoe, HOE.
Oh my God.
Exclamation.
That somewhere.
I mean, maybe. Honestly, I have all my notebooks. These giant heavy boxes that I move from place to place that I never look at unless I'm really drunk.
For just reference for people who don't know you, you are living in LA now, and you came from Minnesota, and that's where we met, and now you're in LA.
Yeah, I'm a Minnesota girl, but I've been in LA for like 6 years now, 7 years.
Wow.
And I recently moved to Glacel Park.
Very fun.
So I'm inching closer to hipsterdom over here in my charming little bungalow.
Very
guest
good.
house. Yeah, but it's pretty cool. But I do, I miss Minnesota. I haven't been able to go back for like over a year thanks to COVID. So
I know.
I'm sending you my Cali sunshine and love, but I miss you. Wish we could
I miss you so
be in
much.
Minnesota.
I know. I wish I could be in LA. So we've got that going for us. Whenever I interview people, if I like know them, I always try and remember like as close to when we actually first met as possible. And obviously it was when you were going to MCAD for art, but I can't remember when we first met. Do you remember?
Yeah, I have to say it was, I don't remember chronologically which was first, but I remember like going to his party. He had a party in Cambridge over the summer after freshman year.
Oh, that's
And
right.
you were definitely there because you got robbed.
Yeah.
You were definitely there.
I forgot about that. Oh my God.
So there was that, but then there was also like you were living in that basement.
Yep.
Next to MCAD. And was that sophomore year? Or was that like
I believe that was sophomore year, because it was kind of like right after the year that you all like met each other and kind of like squatted up, and then I kind of like infiltrated your friend group.
So glad you did.
Me too. Oh my God. Moving across from MCAD was one of the best decisions I ever made, even though it was also terrible. So
okay, but that's life when you're like 20, you know what I mean? Like
sure is.
I mean, because now that we're 22, it's totally different.
Yeah, I completely agree. 20 it was a long ways from 20. But
tell my sister that.
So
I think it's like around then that we met.
No, you're totally right. I actually always forget about that weird like backwoods party that happened. God, so funny.
I remember that was a fun one because I have to just bring up, like, obviously you got robbed, which we don't need to go into more detail because I don't know if you know those people or not. But I also remember I
love that story because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah. When I remember too, like Gage was there and he was like living in Illinois or whatever, but he came up for that party.
Right.
And then like didn't want to talk to anybody, like any of Jared's friends, because he was like, I don't know these people. And like I didn't know them either. So like we spent a lot of time like in the kitchen.
Yeah. See, I never went inside. So like I think that like maybe I saw you guys for 2 seconds and then you were inside the rest of the night. And I was
Yeah,
like
but I
in
also
the garage.
feel like there weren't that many girls there, right? So I feel like maybe we
No.
did talk because like there weren't a lot of girls, and it was like, okay, well, who are the girls?
Okay.
Just in case. I don't know any. I drove up from Henning, and then like I also like slept in my car and then left the next morning because I really just wanted to like party with my college friends, but I also like had a job that I had
Yeah.
to be at.
Yep.
So like I don't know what I was thinking. You have so much
Yeah.
energy when you're like young and stupid.
Yeah. Yeah, no. And so to flesh out the Rob story, because I feel like Rob is like too I don't even know what the word is, like brutal of a term. I think it was just like fuckery. So I came up and I brought like literally like a case of beer and like a big bag of weed with, right? And like
Party, yeah, totally.
party time, excellent. And I like put the beer in the bag on like a table in the garage and was like, whoever wants to imbibe, please do. And then like was like getting ready to leave and I couldn't find the bag anywhere and was like, huh, that's really weird. And then like Jared was like, oh yeah, weird, like I'll help you look around. And so we were looking around, couldn't find it. I was like, huh, okay. And then like left and then find out years later he's like, yeah, sorry, like my friends took it and I didn't know how to tell you. And I'm just like,
well, no shit, Sherlock. Like, what do you think? It
right.
like ran away? Like,
What?
guy.
Yeah, it's like there's like a handful of people there. And I also said, like, please feel free to take whatever you want, like take from it or whatever. And then so I don't
all
know
of it.
call that. Yeah. It's like, okay, cool. But yeah, that was funny.
Just one example of people taking advantage of Vicky's generosity. Oh, brother.
So true. I got an early start. But yeah, so so like following that hilarious encounter, I moved to more south Minneapolis than I was. I was living in Northeast at the time, and then I moved into this apartment across the street from Minneapolis College of Art and Design, and Katelyn and a bunch of other artsy cats were going to school there, and I would kind of just pretend I was a student and would like go to the college and use the tools and like made friends with Katelyn's group of friends and stuff, and it was so much fun, and I learned so much from you all as artists. Like I definitely learned like the ridiculous work ethic of like I would argue successful artists, which is essentially do whatever you can to work constantly. Like there's no reason that I would have, or like there's just no way that I would have actually been friends with you all if I didn't live across the street from you, because essentially you were working all the time, right? It's like you didn't.
Yeah, I mean the pace is crazy. I mean, like if you're gonna, you know what I mean? Like if you're one of those kids who like takes advantage of like, like for me growing up, there weren't a lot of arty cats around and there weren't a lot of resources for that. Right. So then when you get to a place where it's like inspiration, resources, peers who are into the same shit, it's like, and it's like really exciting. And so like, yeah, there was, like the good kids or whatever, like who really took advantage of it. And like, when you do, you're just, you're grinding like all the fucking time. You're just like going, which is, I feel like some flaws in that system where it's, it's an accelerated path and a place to learn work ethic, which is really important, but also like as an artist, like maybe think a little bit before you start making stuff. Like, what are you making? And like, why are you making it? Like, that's one thing I think I've learned since MCAD, which is maybe a bit of a tangent from this conversation, but yeah, we're just going all the time. Yeah. And I do have to say, oh, honey. Oh, baby dear. Are you warm? Sorry.
That's okay.
She has to give her 2 cents every once in a while. Geez, where was I going with this? Yeah, I mean, we were all working really hard. And also I have to say that you did MCAD the right way, like with no loans, because oh my God, how expensive it was for what we got. Like, wouldn't take it back. Love the people I met there. Like my whole experience, like got me to, like where I am. So like, I'm happy with it, but be paying forever, dude.
Yeah,
Can we get Bernie Sanders in here or what? Like, I need some relief.
I need relief. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, it's interesting, and it's like just MCAT itself being kind of a factory for like, I mean, of course, if you have loans like that, how are you not almost going to kind of really shift up in gears that whole like overworked mentality where it's like, yeah, you kind of have to get a job at like an ad agency or like a brand or something and just like produce stuff that's making you a ton of fucking money, right? It's like,
right. Well, and they're kind of like breeding you for that. You know what I mean? Like
that's what
I
I'm
guess
saying.
kind of,
yeah.
Right. The kind of the
like,
point where it's like real artists do grind and like find opportunities and hustle like a motherfucker, you know, like,
right.
and the people like from our, you know, peer group who have succeeded in becoming, you know, like full-time artists, I definitely
Right.
say they do have that fire.
Right.
But like most of us did end up doing something kind of, you know, like creative in the business world, because that's kind of what MCAD really secretly is breeding you for.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you also got to kind of avoid that
Right.
pitfall. You know, you're
Right.
able to kind of get the experience and like, you know, find the community and the resources without all that desperation and, you know, having to sell your soul basically.
Yeah. I
Like
think
so many of us have.
I feel like that was also something that I mean, just like you were saying, that I kind of had to process a little bit more, like after, I mean, essentially after a bunch of my friends from there were like moving away and like, you know, getting fancy jobs and stuff. And I, you know, would like compare myself or be like, well, why can't I do that? Or why, you know, and obviously a multitude of reasons. Like, while I say that I infiltrated MCAT, obviously I didn't actually get a degree from there and actually, you know, get all this learning and stuff, but I did get to experiment. And I am not the type of artist where my personal art is meant to be mass produced, you know, like I'm the type
And you're
of,
also, I just to interrupt you,
Yeah.
just talk about how great you are again. Like you're, you know, you're one of the artists that truly are innovative and you explore a lot of different, you know, different realms and I don't want to make it sound weird, but like you're not afraid to like fail in a way, you know, like you'll try something if it interests you. You'll try something if it interests you, and then like it'll lead you down this really interesting path. And like also I feel like your work informs your other work, you know?
right.
And that's something that's always been so cool about you that a lot of us don't really have, you know?
Right. And I think that I didn't realize, like, honestly, I actually felt more bad about that part of myself until, I mean, I didn't start processing that until a couple years after. And then even like as of late, more and more I've realized, like, I specifically remember one of our friends there telling me at one point that like I needed to focus on something and stop like hopping around and everything. And like I was so wounded at the time. But like now I feel like maybe that was birthed out of like maybe a little bit of jealousy from them. Exactly. Because it's like, oh, like I'm actually like my school is life and I get to try out these things and yeah, not be afraid to fail. And like, or rather like, of course I was afraid to fail and not be perfect at every single thing. But then I got over that, you know, and realized like, oh, like me.
It never stopped you from doing something that you wanted to do, you know? And I think that's huge.
Yeah.
As a creative person.
I'd say
well,
there was a time and a place where, I mean, I essentially just like stopped everything and was really like wounded. And a big part of that was because of the culture. And I would say that's more in music than like visual art. And that took me quite a while to recover from. But again, it's just all culminated into like, yeah, like maybe I quote unquote failed at this particular project in a particular medium that I tried or a show or whatever, but it's like that is informing this much larger picture, which the larger picture, you know, not to sound like an asshole, but it's like I'm not failing at, you know, it's like all
I was just gonna say, like, I don't think anything you've ever made is like a failure. I think just the fear of failure is what holds so many people back from doing something, and you don't let that stop you, you know. I would say like as a person and especially as an artist, you're successful, Vic. I would say, you know, like you're creating a lot more personal stuff than a lot of us were in that scene at that time, you know? Like
I guess
I mean?
it's all
Like
how
you played the long
it.
game.
Yeah.
You know, we all burned out. You know what I mean? we all
yes and
burned
no.
out.
I mean, I feel like we're all finding our balance in some sort of way. I mean, it's still like I'm definitely not living off of my art full time. You know what I mean? Like still, like there have only been like brief moments in my life where that's a thing. And I mean, I also often wonder if that's actually even possible for like, you know, a modern
Our generation.
Yeah, for sure. Like even like the musicians that I respect the most, like work at a fucking pizza shop or something, you know, it's like, that's just kind of not.
Yeah, unless you're a trust fund baby or you have, you know, some kind of Patreon or some kind of thing that you found, you know, and like, you know, kudos to all those people who have found that and are able to, you know, use that as a vehicle to become successful in their chosen field, you know, like that's awesome. But, you know, for most of the people who have a creative side to explore, it's like you really hit a crossroads where it's like, is this going to become my, you know, my bread and butter, or is this going to be my hobby, you know?
Right. Which,
and I,
oh, go ahead.
No, you tell me, girl.
Well, I was just going to say, I feel like for a long time, that's kind of one of the pieces that I was scared to do too, is like, just ask for financial support, you know? And it's still scary when you don't just like absolutely like blow it out of the water right away when you ask for something like that. But, you know, at this point, like I do have a Patreon, like for this podcast and stuff. And like, it's,
whoop, whoop.
Whoop, whoop. It's like, you know, also still not paying the bills, but like I'm also, I feel like I've definitely had a lot of processing as far as like how my ego relates to that stuff at this point. You know, I'm like, all right, like it would be nice to be paying my rent off of this, but also like anything helps. And like, I'm not relating literally how many commas are in my paycheck to like my worth at this point, which took a long damn time, dude, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that's hard for anybody, like any type of career that you have, like, you know, be it creative or not, you know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah, for sure.
Ugh.
Yeah. Ugh, indeed. Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of, you know, and that's probably part of the reason, honestly, why I stopped doing comics so often is because like I hit this crossroads, like living in LA, just because, you know, like the city is a little bit unforgiving in the sense where LA doesn't give a shit if you're here or not. You know what I mean? Like you could stay or go and like the city will be the city, you know?
Somebody else
I feel like
your place.
Right. And I feel like, you know, Minneapolis is a little bit more forgiving in that sense, just because it's smaller and, you know, I have more people there too. So it's like, you know, so I mean, for me out here, it was kind of like, okay, your quality of life is not great.
Yeah.
You're making awesome comics for yourself. Right. You know, you're sitting at home in your, you know, house, you know, all the time. Like you have a choice, you know, like 25-year-old self. Like, do you keep doing this? Do you like decide that you want to do it and like pimp yourself out and like, you know, work on that part of you to like find a way to make these go for you? Or, you know, like maybe do you try focusing on, you know, having a more stable path, you know? And I you know, I seriously like considered this, you know, like a handful of years ago, and I said, you know what, maybe if I just like I love making work and I love being creative, and it's a huge part of like, you know, like just me as a person, like doing my thing. But like, what if I just tried to be, you know, like HBIC Katelyn? Like, what if I just tried to be business Katelyn and tried to like do the best that I could like with that, you know? And so I did. And then like that first year that I just decided to focus on, you know, like not putting my work out there as much and just making it still, but like for myself. Like that's the first year that my career kind of like, you know what I mean? I started like seeing some like gains in that world because, you know, I mean, a little bit of age and a little bit of, you know, experience factors in as well, but just focusing on it. I was, you know, I went from being like a PA, you know, or like an assistant to like a line producer, you know, and even sometimes like I'm the producer, like I have people working under me now instead of being the one getting coffee every day, you know, and oh, my paycheck, oh, I'm getting called like more than once a month, like, oh, I can, you know, I can buy new shoes now, you know, like
I'm not just constantly struggling, like some sort of stability. Dude, stability is very, very satisfying, honestly. I feel like I had a little bit of swing of that at some point too.
Yeah, well, and two, you know what I mean? Like being in a relationship where like both parties are creative.
Right.
You know, I feel like that's a huge part of it too. Cause like, you know, like then boyfriend, now husband, like he's a really creative dude. And like, I feel like if he really pushed it, he actually would, you know, do great with like his writing and stuff. And And I'm a little bit more like of a task oriented, like kind of bossy person anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that part of my world like is fulfilling to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not the same, but you know, I don't feel like I'm crushing my soul either, you know, like,
right.
So like if that became, you know, my part of the relationship of the give and take, you know, like, I mean, the idea was, you know, like to free him up so he could do more creative stuff.
Right.
You know, that's always a part of it too. And I think there's an ebb and flow to that, you know, and then, and now it's just interesting because like in terms of, you know, creativity, like I created a baby. So now like that's my thing, you know, so it's like,
totally.
Now what is the future of, you know,
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's really exciting though. Cause it's like, I don't know. It's, you know, it's not like your enjoyment of art goes away or anything, but it's also just inspiring to like grow outside of maybe the predictions you had for yourself and find joy in those areas as well. You know, it's like, I mean, not to sound boring, but like stability is really sexy to me. You know, like not living paycheck to paycheck is really fun. You know,
we are in our 22s now, so like that stuff does look a lot more appealing.
Very true, very true.
Yeah, and it's a long game too, you know what I mean? I think that like life cycles and has its ebbs and flows, and like there was always parts of my life where I was making more and parts where I was making less, like you kind of alluded to.
Right.
So, you know, we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you see yourself ever in the position of like focusing on, you know, like comics or like releasing anything again? Or do you think,
you know, I think it would be fun to like have an Instagram where just like it's totally separate than me and like I don't even really tell people about it, where I just do like funny, you know, like maybe I have one already, I don't know.
Caitlin,
no, I'm just kidding, I don't.
I would be so upset.
I used to have like a secret Tumblr though, like I gotta find it.
Fun.
Yeah, I used to have a secret Tumblr, and then when you sent it I was like, oh shit. Yeah, but
that's fantastic.
I would totally do that again, you know, like maybe, who knows, maybe being a parent will give me some new material.
Oh, it absolutely will. What is like, so earlier you were referring to, you know, some of the comics or whatever that you would like just make for yourself and you're like, I don't want anybody to know about that. What is that like? Can you say what that like revolves around, or like an example of like, is it just like inner thoughts, or is it like experiences you've had with other people, or like what scares you most in that sense?
Yeah, you know, I think, I mean, it's just different. Like, you know, I had some like long form things like where I kind of confronted some of the things that I did in my past. And like, I made this town called Loserville, which it's like
written on my notes. I said, Loserville ? I want to know more. Perfect.
Okay, well, I made it's seriously, it's like a 40-page comic where I like go into like all this stuff that I did.
Dude.
When I was kind of at a down point, you know, like, it's just, you know, like, okay, everybody has this where you're like just sitting there enjoying your life, drinking some coffee, maybe playing some Animal Crossing, and then you remember this thing that you did or said like 4 years ago, and you're like, God, I'm such a fucking idiot, you know? And it just, and then it just like plays in a loop in your mind, and you just like can't let it go.
Yeah.
You know, like, so like Loserville was like my place to kind of put a lot of that stuff.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, but like also at the same time, like highly depressing. Like I showed it to a couple people and they're like, this makes me sad and anxious.
Oh my God.
Like, maybe it's not for the world, you know? There was that. And then there was like one that I made out here about like trying to get a job and like kind of all the forays. Like I made like kind of an alternate version of myself where I was kind of like this hippie chick, which I am not really at all, you know, but just somebody, because I'm so kind of like, I feel like high strung in some ways, you know, like, so I made this character that was just like me, but if I would have gone through all my situations, like very laissez-faire. Yeah. And kind of like laid back and just like trying to see the good of stuff. Yeah. You know, like when you're peeing and cleaning up trash and it's like, oh, this person's like, oh, I'm peeing, but like free snacks. You know what I mean? Like trying to see the good side, you know? Trying
to access the alternate dimension of yourself.
Yeah, stuff like that. Or like, you know, there's always the things where like if something funny happens in your day, like I used to, okay, so I have this gold car that I've had it since basically I graduated college. I still have it out here. I may or may not have crashed it into a U-Haul. A parked U-Haul at one point, which would not be my first time crashing into a parked car, mind you. But anyway, so like I had this, so I like for a while I was driving around with like, it held, like my bumper was held up with like a bungee cable. And like, I had so many different people react to that.
Oh my God, yes.
So I kind of vroom vroom.
Mhm.
I made a comic where I just kind of like captured in a funny way, like all the way people reacted to my bumper.
Yeah.
You know, which is like stupid, but like people are so weird when they like don't realize that you're paying attention to them.
Yes. Oh my God. One of my favorite stories that might be a fun illustration of how you are not, in fact, a hippie is we were at a house party.
Oh, with like those punks, those crusty punks.
Yes. We were at this quite infamous party house named the Portland House, and it was like a place where there were like lots of like metal shows or like just like grimy shit, and like you could go, people are always doing drugs and stuff, and there's always a party going on. You could just show up at any time. And I don't remember if it was like a holiday or what, but we ended up there and we were in the kitchen, and there were just like all of these crust punks all over, and you and I are just standing there like drinking or something, and then you're just like, so what's everybody's 5-year plan? And then, like there were multiple eyeballs that just like, for me it was slow motion, but they all turned at you and were just like giving snarly faces, and it was like, all right, let's go.
Well, you know, everybody needs to think about it, really. And, you know, I want to bet you like
love
some of those pricks were probably like accountants now or some shit. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
went back to Richfield and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
That's kind of a tangent, but I feel like those kind of people who are that far on an edge always swing back and turn out to be like super, you know, like super granola or something, you know, like how people who are uber religious and like Bible thumping and really uptight go like mental, like the most nuts, you know, like, so
yes, I'm familiar with all of those things.
You know, so I know that, I should have read the room a little better, to be fair.
Honestly,
but you know what? Maybe I did spark the idea in one person's mind, and maybe they did clean up their act, okay?
My favorite part about it is that you're still defending it as a possible inspirational moment for anyone.
Yeah, and not a murdering one for me. I don't know. Yeah.
No, I think, no. That's why, I mean, that's one of the reasons I love being friends with you so much, is you've got your own way of looking at things, even in a, you know, you're not going to just like blend into a corner, you know, and be like, oh, this is what we're doing now. It's like,
I guess
it's very good. I enjoy it.
Yeah, that's one of the beautiful things about being young. You know, you feel invincible, and you know, so you can kind of do and say whatever. Now it's just like, man, I just wish I could be in a place that like has people in it, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
what
who
I would
is that
give
side
to
of
be
me
in
now?
that crust punk house right now. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You know, and plus I've gained a bunch of weight since then, so I could really kind of toss around in a mosh pit, you know, like could knock some boys over.
Oh
my thunder thighs.
That's beautiful. So how is having a baby in a fucking pandemic, dude?
Yeah, I'm a COVID mommy. Yeah, you know, I mean, I feel like we, you know, off the record, we've talked about it before. So I feel like you kind of have an idea, but
right.
You know, I guess what I'll say is that, you know, it's weird because like having a baby and starting a family is a thing that everybody does, and it's always life-changing.
Right.
You know, regardless of like the external situation that the world is in.
Mm-hmm.
But then, you know, I guess kind of adding all that into like living in, you know, a pretty big city where, you know, things are shut down, and
right.
I don't know. It's just like a lot of, you know, because I'm based in Soda, and, you know, my partner, Bex, a lot of his family's in Soda. Like, you know, we just don't have any support out here, really. Like, we have some friends and a little bit of family, but,
right.
You know, when you have a kid, like, you need those people, right? So, you know, I would say that, like, you know, because, okay, so my daughter was born in early August 2020. So we found out that we were pregnant a little bit after Thanksgiving of 2019.
Right.
And, you know, like all people who find out, like you're not super prepared, but you're kind of like, well, this is the time, I guess, that it happened, you know?
Right.
And so we were like really excited, you know. Then the first trimester rolls around, like I'm feeling like garbage, and like all that stuff happens or whatever, and just the normal stuff of pregnancy and like trying to figure that out. And then you kind of get a grasp on like, okay, I'm pregnant now. Like, you know, the second trimester is coming. I'm feeling a little better. I can start telling people, awesome. You know, like starting to show whatever. And then like, so if, you know, in the timeline, that's around like late February, early March that like we're hitting that. And so like, I remember like one of my freelance gigs out here is at
this kind of famous toy company that may or may not, you know, have their own world. You know, the parent company. Anyway, like so I'm working, you know, at this place, and like it's a 2-week job, and like at the beginning of the job everything is normal. Like this toy company, like a lot of people have kids, and they're like, oh cool, another consumer, you know, like, oh, new baby to buy our toys. And you know, like this is my first foray into telling people, and it's like kind of exciting. And like this is like March like 5th or some stuff, you know.
Right.
And then like the second week of the job, it goes from like, you know, like, oh, whatever, to being like, oh, hey, what's going on? Like, are people like freaking out for no reason? Or like, what, you know, like all these people are like, a lot of them like travel from other places, and they're like, can I go back home? Like, what's going on? You know, like like all these borders are starting to close. And I mean, people that I work with were from the US, so like that wasn't the issue. But, you know, it was just like, my sister was out here. We were supposed to go to a Strokes concert. But instead, like, we didn't go anywhere. We didn't see anybody or do anything. Like, Beck went to the grocery store, and like the shelves were all empty. Like, he got a can of hominy and like 18 things of like, you know, meal cereal bags. Like,
oh my God.
Because that's what there was. And it was just like, what the hell is going on? And I'm pregnant, and we don't know what the hell what COVID is at that time, you know, like we're wiping down like our grocery bags, and like, you know what I mean? Like, so I just all of a sudden go from like having a job and living a normal life and get excited about telling people that I'm going to be a mom, to like all of a sudden just like totally trapped. And it's just, it was just really weird, you know, like, I mean, for everybody, COVID has really changed a lot of stuff. But for me, you know, I guess my experience is like what I can speak to. And basically that week in March, like I got fired because, you know, I'm a freelancer for events. All the events are gone. And like, plus I'm pregnant. So like, and I'm starting to tell people, so like nobody wants to hire me anymore anyway. I probably could have squeezed a couple more months out of work had the pandemic not started. But anyway, so I'm out of a job. I can't leave my house, you know, and, you know, like I'm pregnant. So I'm kind of trapped in my body. Like, I feel like this is, sorry, I went up a hill again. So I feel like something about pregnancy that anybody who's been there can relate, you know, like the hormones take over. Yeah. And for somebody who's a control freak like me, you can't control it, you know, like your body is not just your body anymore. And it's doing something independently of you that is beautiful and powerful, but also like terrifying because you don't know what your body is doing. I mean, it's hard to put into words, but yeah, it's just kind of, it's just when you're experiencing that anyway, and then you have kind of this kind of these terrors of the outside world, this other closing around you.
Don't know what's going on, and like just, you know, essentially holding your breath till we find out more, you know. I remember in the beginning they were saying like, actually don't wear masks because that like makes you touch your face more or something. Like that was a thing for a while. It's like,
I remember that too. Like at one of my doctor's appointments, like one of the last ones that Beck was allowed at, because then they kind of wanted less people to be going through the doctor's offices, you know? So like, but like at one of the last ones that he was at, which was like our big 20-week scan or whatever, they were like, yeah, don't wear a mask. Or, you know, and later we find out it's just because they didn't want people to hoard it like toilet paper, which is like, hey, maybe think about that. Because like, maybe look at the implications of that. But
absolutely.
But, you know, hindsight's 20/20, and like to be a leader is tough or whatever. But also that, well, you know, how we feel about
ding dong.
Yeah. I don't need to like talk about that, but like no masks. And then all of a sudden it's like, only wear masks. And it's like, it's only airborne. So like whatever is fine, but don't go near anybody or don't do anything. And everything's closed. And I don't know. It was just really weird because so for like March, the rest of March, April and May, I didn't even like leave the house to like go for a walk even, you know, because I was living in like Koreatown, which is like pretty condensed. And like, you can't really even go for a walk without like running into a lot of people. And we were just so terrified, you know what I mean? Because it's like, my job is to support this life growing inside of me. And like, I don't know, there's no science on like what this will do.
Yeah. I literally don't know. Yeah.
And I won't be able to live with myself if like something happens to this baby because I wasn't careful enough, you know?
Right.
But at the same time, like going from living a wildly independent life to being, you know, kind of trapped physically and mentally, you know, it's just kind of, I went a little nuts there for a little bit. So, and I think like probably anybody who is becoming a first-time parent through this experience probably has some degree of that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
I mean, and I do have to say, like, all this, again, like everybody's had to make some huge sacrifices because of COVID in their lives. And if you didn't, then fuck you, honestly. So, you know, everybody's had their experiences. And I do have to say that, like, it was crazy. You know, like Margot, even now, like it's been just, it's, you know, it's January and Margot's been, my daughter is like, I've taken her to a store one time and it was a Ralph's. So I could buy some flaming hot Cheetos, mac and cheese. Like,
very
you
good.
know, like I'm still like living. I mean, I go for walks now because I need to like get out a little bit. Yeah, exactly. You know, and it anyway, you know, so like that's improved, but like still it's worse here than it ever was, which is like the irony, you know, like we're all like caging ourselves in last April, but like out here, the cases are insane. We're, you know, it's 15,000 new cases a day in LA County. And that's like low for the average weekly, you know, like it's not, I mean, it will get better, hopefully, because they're doing, you know, mass rounds of vaccinations as of this time, you know, mid-January, but yeah, I don't know. Anyway, so I guess what I'm trying to say is that like COVID's crazy. You can't control that. Pregnancy, it's crazy. You can't control that. So,
kind of
the real
experience.
Yeah, but like the real payoff is, you know, like my daughter now is here. Like she's been here since August. And honestly, I'm lucky as shit, even with all this stuff to happen, because she's healthy. I'm healthy. There were no complications. And I was able to like get pregnant and like have a beautiful baby. Like so many people struggle with that alone, you know, like, and that honestly would, you know, I feel for all those people who, you know, like I know some people who like have been trying for years and then they weren't able to. And then, you know, this year, then during COVID, it happened.
Right.
You know, and it's like, I don't know. It's everybody's journey is tough, and starting a family and pregnancy and babies and family planning, I guess is what you call it. Like that is its own experience. And we're ultimately really thankful to have had a really positive overall birth experience and, you know, to have a healthy bouncing baby, you know, and also like, you know, they always say this crap about how motherhood, like it's just different. It just changes you know, like all that crap. But like, you know, like it did, I feel like after all the experiences of the past year, like give my life purpose again in a really meaningful way. That's because I really was, you know what I mean? Just kind of at a low point. And then, you know, and then for this baby to be born, it's just really awesome. I'm excited for you to meet her someday. And I know like, it'll be fun, you know, and I know like everybody's kind of like, my kid is this and with that or whatever, but I don't know, like when it is your kid, it's like pretty awesome. Yeah. And you know, even if she was ugly, she'd still be awesome. Yeah. But she was so damn cute anyway.
But she's so cute. That's great.
Yeah.
Zach was able to be with you like in the delivery room and stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, and see, like that's kind of a crazy thing. Like in March and April, I really feel for those women because they weren't allowed their husbands or their partners, you know. They weren't allowed midwives or doulas or any of that stuff. They were had to go it alone unless you were having a home birth, which those women who can do that, more power to you. But like for me, the first time, I don't know what's going to happen. I need to make sure that there's like stuff near me just in case, you know? So by the time August rolled around, they had their stuff figured out. Like we had to get our temperatures taken and it was just only one person allowed. And they told us that when we did like our training classes or whatever, they told us that like once you're in the building, you can't leave. Right. And I was like, oh, my partner smokes. He's going to hate this. Like 3 days, like the most stressful thing and no smoking. Ha ha ha. But they did let him leave, you know, or let us kind of come and go. So they also gave this really awesome speech about how like there are baby robbers, you know, and they're like, after she was born, they take you to like the post birth room, whatever it's called, you know, where like you have to learn how to pee again and stuff. And it's really glamorous. But like this woman comes in and our daughter was born at like 10:30 at night. So like, this is all like 1 a.m. after 20 hours of that whole ordeal of like having a baby, you know, like they're like, oh yeah. So just be careful when people come in here to look at your baby, just make sure they have this little tiny tag on their lanyards. Cause if they don't, they could be just here to steal your baby. If they, but just, you know, have a good night rest. And it's like, what? They're like, you know, this is a pretty secure building, but stuff happens. And it's like, what?
My God.
Yeah.
No.
I know. And my partner was like really nervous about that too, like almost in a funny way, like when we were doing these, you know, because everything's on Zoom or whatever. So we had like a Zoom quote unquote Lamaze class or whatever, you know, and he asked the teachers, he's like, hey, so what about like baby swaps? You know, because you always hear about that. Like, am I going to end up with like Sid's baby instead of mine? You know, we asked them this and they like had to give us a serious answer. And they're like, well, the tags have chips in them. So when you get scanned, we know it's your baby and like all this stuff. And
that's wild, dude. I can't remember, did you do a C-section or did you just do regular?
Oh yeah, no, this baby came out of my vagina, which, you know, I mean, I'm very thankful for, because C-sections, I mean, you know, like they cut through like 9 layers of your fucking like,
oh yeah, that's some scary
body, your dermis, and more. It's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like I had enough trouble, like, you know, just from like a normal birth afterwards, you know, because like I'm an idiot. And when they say like, oh, take it easy, like, you know, you just went through a major thing, like allow yourself to rest.
Right.
I was like, no, I'm fine. I can walk around. I can go up and down these steps 40 times a day just to get a glass of water. I'm fine. You know, as I'm like bleeding, like never healing.
Yeah.
Freaking idiot.
Did you do epidural?
Yeah. And, you know, they all say that like, that's so like a magic cure all or whatever. I'm like, contractions still freaking hurt. Like, I don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. Like, sure. You know, I was like, is this supposed to help? Because I still feel a lot. And they're like, oh, it just numbs it a little, honey.
Whoa.
But yeah, I did an epidural and, you know, I was strapped up to Pitocin, which you warned me about. And now I get it.
Yeah, totally.
You know?
Yeah.
I know, because actually, like, because I didn't really know anything about childbirth. I mean, you gave me a couple tips from because you had filmed some births.
Right.
So I'm thankful for those notes.
Not like I knew like what was actually right or not. I just like knew they existed at that point. You know what I mean? It's like, but yeah, before that I was always like kind of someone who's like, oh, like, you know, it just seems like doing it without an epidural is something I'd want to do. And then like after seeing like the difference between like with and without, I'm like, oh, or I could, you know,
or you could have it.
Yeah, totally. Like, holy shit.
Yeah. I mean, I do have to say, because like with my experience, you know, like once they ramp you up in Pitocin, like basically like the natural, and I'm not a doctor, you know, by any means, and I'm not in the medical profession, you know, kudos and much props to those frontline workers, you know, which I'm not. So this is from what I understood, you know, like a natural, normal, as planned, miss you, contraction, you know, it's kind of like a roller coaster, right? Like, so, you know, you go up and then you go down, and then like you release oxytocin after the contraction. It's like your body's natural way to be like, that sucked, but you can keep doing it, you know. It's like a little bit kind of like an orgasm in a way, you know what I mean? Like after you, you know, cum, you know, you feel kind of good for a minute.
Yeah,
you know, like that's part of the birth giving process. And like when they give you Pitocin, like they're just like ramming your, you know what I mean? Like you don't get that like feel good.
Right.
I know, honey. Do you remember being born?
Are you remembering?
Yeah. So, you know, like the Pitocin really kind of just is hardcore. So like if you're going to go that hardcore, you do kind of need an epidural just to like, you know, take the edge off or whatever. But
I mean, from my understanding too, it's kind of like also the reverse of what you said is like, if you get an epidural, you kind of need the Pitocin, because for a lot of people,
you stall out
because your body's like, oh, actually, like we can just chill. Like we don't need to make this happen.
Yeah.
Right now, so.
Well, and see, that's kind of like, was I talking about this with you? Or maybe I was talking about it with another friend, but basically, you know, like your birth experience, and you kind of have all these ideas and you do all this research, and it's like, yeah, you know, I could have gone natural and maybe it would have taken 3 days, or I could have done what I did and get help and it took 20 hours, which is still a long time, but you know, it is one of like the most intense and, you know, painful experiences. Right. So it's it's like, I guess doing the shortened and like more intense version worked for us.
Right.
You know, and again, I have a healthy baby and I survived. So
right.
Yeah, and now you poop.
And now
Little Grantilda.
Cute. So what are you still doing that Animal Crossing or what?
Oh my God, yes.
Okay.
And that's like my one thing. I'm like, wow, is there anything I have to plug? And I'm like, I want to plug my island, the Shire.
Cute.
Drop my friend code in the comments.
Yes.
Maybe I'll make a dream address so y'all can visit and not mess up my shit. Right. But yeah, I got all the goods. So I'm happy to share too if anybody else plays Animal Crossing. That's like what kept me sane.
Yeah.
Those months I like turned it into my job. So my island is like pretty tight.
Dude, your island is sick. I kind of took a break from the crossing for a little bit because I got Zelda, which I'd never played before.
Oh yeah, my bro's really into Zelda. That's pretty god tier game, I think, for the Switchy.
Yeah, I got the one, what is it? Link Awakens or whatever, where they like redid it so it's like super fucking cute.
Aw.
It actually resembles Animal Crossing animation.
Aw.
It's like bubbly.
So it's kind of like for babies. I love that.
Yeah, it's for me. Are you digging into anything else? Any other games or?
Well, I have to say, I recently watched all of Friends from start to finish.
Oh my God.
And I have a hot take on that.
Ooh, what's a hot take?
Ross is an asshole and he sucks. And he gaslights Rachel. He's like, oh, you're the girl for me. I love you so much and you're my everything. And then he's like, I don't know. This woman I just met on the dig is pretty cool. I would maybe pick her over. And it's just like, you know, you can't like tell somebody that they're like your number one and then treat them like dog shit, you know, and then like, you know, get them pregnant and then not make an honest woman out of them. Like, what kind of man, like, who kind of positions himself as the sensitive guy does that kind of stuff, you know?
Across.
Like, I always felt like, because I wasn't super into Friends before I started watching this.
Yeah.
But like, I always thought that like Rachel was a bitch, you know, like a prissy princess bitch. But it's like, actually, she kind of turns into one after her deal with Ross. You know, he cheats on her. He does all this like awful stuff. He has, I think, the most girlfriends out of like any character, even Joey, honestly.
Dang. Yeah, I feel like I watched that show, but I have like no recollection of it besides that Joey was my dude.
Yeah, Joey's I think my favorite too, honestly.
Cute out.
What are you doing? People are gonna think you're in a cult. They dressed you in all white today. She's like wearing like long sleeve white onesie and white little baby leggings. So yeah, she looks seriously like she's about to, you know, put on some Nikes and get on the bus.
Oh my God. How about trashy TV?
Sweaty. Oh my God. You know, I'm a 90-day girl. Remember when you came out here and we just drank like seriously like case upon case of DC?
Absolutely.
And watched like 90 day on repeat.
You introduced me. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, they've really gone downhill, which is sad to say, you know, but like that original Danielle and Muhammad, like that's the kind of reality TV gold that like people search the world high and low for that. So and they found it.
Yeah. Oh,
whatever.
God.
You know, I think it was exploitive, but Danielle made out pretty good. Like she couldn't even like pay her bills before that show.
Yeah.
You know, totally. And then like, you know, she was able to buy a house. She has like a MacBook Pro, like her daughter's lives have improved. You know what I mean? Like she hustled
she's got that MacBook Pro money, dude. She's good.
I mean, I don't have a MacBook Pro. You know what I mean? She's doing good.
That's great.
So yeah, let's see. We've been trashy TV. A lot of Food Network. I'm into food porn these days. I don't know if you watch Guys Grocery Games.
No.
Hey, sorry, I'm still here. I'm just muting myself for a second.
Oh, that's okay. I was actually gonna say we're over an hour, so if you want me to let you go so you can take care of Miss Poopy Pants, I can do that.
Do you like that? You earned that title, baby. You're Miss Poopy Pants now to the HBU Listen to Girls audience. You're Miss Poopy Pants.
Miss Poopy, number one Miss Poopy Pants. Well, thanks again for letting me chat with you.
Yeah, thank you for thinking that I was cool enough to be interviewed by the one and only Victoria Carpenter. It's an honor and a privilege to be on your podcast and to be your friend.
Hell yeah. Well, I missed you like crazy, and I can't wait to squeeze that little baby.
Yeah, she's excited to meet you too. And then she's going to kind of, pull the old auntie card and say, "Where's yours? I need a friend."
Working on it.
Come on, Evan. Just kidding.
Well,
Well, on that note, I love you.
I love you too.
And keep the romance alive. I know we sure are over here.
Attention! You have been